By the end of the Second World War, the former Allies had become rivals, and the Cold War arms race had begun. The focus of the American efforts went on developing rocket and missile weapon systems. It seemed that the captured German flying saucer technology had been put on hold. Then in 1947, there was a report of a UFO flying over America seen by an American pilot, Kenneth Arnold.
He was flying near Mount Rainier in the state of Washington and witnessed 9 flying discs some distance from him.
When Arnold landed, he told his story to the local press.
I was approximately 25 to 28 miles from Mount Rainier, and I noticed to the left of me a chain which looked to me like the tail of a Chinese kite going at a terrific speed across the face of Mount Rainier. They looked something like a pie plate that was cut in half with a sort of a convex triangle in the rear.
Well, Kenneth Arnold started a firestorm. He was able to calculate from known landmarks how fast they were flying, and found they were flying at 12 or 1,300 miles an hour. And from his description, once he landed and gave this story to the press, he described these objects as if they were saucers skipping on water. And today, that's how we have the word flying saucer.
From out of nowhere, the flying saucer mystery is with us. What is the flying saucer? What do people see and sometimes photograph? What's behind the daily reports of aerial phenomena in the nation's press?
U.S. television and radio began reporting eyewitness accounts of members of the public who claimed they had seen UFOs in the skies over America.
I glanced up and there were 3 flying saucers in a V, approximately a half a mile away from me at an altitude of 350 feet.
Is this what Weisberger saw?
America was gripped with UFO sightings and flying saucer fever. The military was eager to deny it was anything to do with them, and went on television to reassure the American public.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
In my position in the Research and Development Organization of the Bureau of Aeronautics and of the Navy Department, I am thoroughly familiar with both our aircraft and our guided missiles programs, and can state without reservation that the Navy has no saucer-shaped aircraft or missile in any of these programs.
Then in July 1947, in the midst of the UFO fever, came a startling report by another serving American officer. He announced to the press the discovery of remains from a flying saucer found in Roswell, New Mexico. Within hours, the story of the Roswell incident exploded around the world. The American military panicked. Again, they issued an official statement designed to reassure an anxious public, denying the remains were from a flying saucer. They maintained that it was simply a weather balloon. Behind all these American denials was a more ominous possibility for the military. Assuming the UFOs were not from outer space, flown by aliens, perhaps all these sightings were evidence of an enemy closer to home.
The American military were inundated by all kinds of UFO reports, and that drove them to the idea that perhaps some of those UFO missions were the Soviets in the air.
The Americans captured the very exotic blueprints of very advanced designs for aircrafts, and among them there was the Horten 229 by the Horten brothers. And this aircraft was very similar in shape to the first description of a flying saucer sighted over America in 1947. And the Americans were scared that the Russians could have produced actually a flying version of the Horten 229.
So in the immediate post-war years, reports of UFO sightings were part of the growing tensions between East and West as the Cold War grew in intensity. In the early 1950s, the Korean War had almost brought the world to a nuclear disaster. In America, the paranoia and the sense of fear of communist invasion was reflected in attitudes to flying saucers in popular culture.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets. The whole world is under attack.
The 50s were the golden age of the flying saucer. People were scared by the Cold War. They were scared by the atomic experiments. They were at the same time very keen to the space exploration and to the advancement of technology, so the climate was the right one to expect extraterrestrial visitations from outer space.
Gee whiz!
Invaders from Mars. He saw them land from outer space. He saw them capture innocent people only to destroy.
But for the American military, the continued rumors and speculation was ideal camouflage for the real UFOs. All over the deserts of America were sites like Area 51, White Sands, and Los Alamos, where alongside missile tests and space programs, there were hundreds of other mysterious top-secret projects. These included high-altitude parachute tests, satellite testing, and the development of future space vehicles. One of these secret programs was called Project Mogul. Project Mogul was a top-secret program to listen in on the Russians using equipment on high-altitude balloons. The American military were desperate to discover secrets of the Soviet program to develop a rival atom bomb. They needed to know when the Soviets were testing one of their weapons. It was not until 20 years later that the US government was forced to confess that the Roswell incident back in 1947 was in fact secret military testing by the Americans. They published a report which concluded that what was recovered was not the remains of an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but debris from a then classified Army Air Force research project, codenamed Mogul. But there was good reason for the Americans to be frightened of the Russians. The experience of the Korean War and the startling appearance of the MiG fighter had proved how advanced Russian military technology had become. America needed to catch up and catch up fast. Could a supersonic flying saucer be the answer?